Welcome, everybody, to the White Rabbit Podcast. I am Matt Krause, coming to you from Bandırma, Turkey. And last time I misidentified the country that I was in. At least today I got that right. So my name is Matt Krause from
That's a good
Bandırma,
start.
Turkey. Yes. And my co-host is Alper from Barcelona, Spain. I also got that country right. So, kudos for me.
No wars this week. Cool.
Okay. So today we have kind of an experimental podcast. We're going to just throw it out there and see how it goes. I have a phrase that I am not a fan of this phrase at all. And I know from previous conversations that Alper is not a big fan of this phrase either. And the phrase is to provide value for something. And I have been wondering, I've been asking myself, why are you so bothered by this phrase to provide value? Why does it anger you so much? And at first I thought, well, it's because it's so vague and, well, it's vague and it doesn't tell you what to do. But then I thought, well, there are lots of things that are vague and that don't tell you what to do, and you're not as angry at them. So what's the problem here? Is maybe we need to dig on this a little deeper. So I was wondering, okay, Matt, there must be something else that's pissing you off about this phrase. and yeah, I see that you're laughing, Alper.
I'm laughing and smiling because I mean, this will be a very candid and transparent moment for the podcast, probably. But I'm thinking like, Matt is bringing his own stuff, let's say, onto the podcast and throwing me under the bus. I'm not a huge opponent of the phrase. In fact, before coming to the recording today, I felt like with the conversation we had, I felt like I was going to give a couple of pushbacks, but I'm going to start them right now.
Oh, wow. Okay, go for it.
No, I'm not a huge opponent of the phrase, but I mean, it needs to be clearly defined what kind of value we're talking about.
Okay.
But I'm just getting warmed up. So let's hear your side of the story first, and then see how much pushback it deserves.
Okay. So this phrase, to provide value. So I was wondering, why is this phrase pissing me off so much? Why does this phrase anger me so much? And at first, like I mentioned before, I thought, okay, well, maybe it's because it's so vague and it doesn't give us any, tangible steps forward to help us provide value. Maybe that's why it makes me so angry. But then I thought, well, there are a lot of things in life that are really vague and that don't give you tangible steps forward. So that can't be the full explanation.
Do they piss you off too?
Not nearly as much.
Yeah.
I mean, being vague.
They piss me off, but not you.
Being vague and, not giving any tangible steps forward is, well, basically just called life. So
yeah,
it's like, welcome to the world. If this is why that phrase pisses you off so much, welcome to the world, Matt. And so I thought, okay, well, there must be something else, some other reason why it's making me so angry. And I've been noodling on that for years now and haven't been able to answer it. And this morning I ran across a phrase because I was reading an email and it's been sitting in my inbox for a while. I've read it a bunch of times. It's not the email itself that was provoking this reaction in me. The email was about something totally different, but there was this phrase in the email, and I'm going to hang on a second. I'm going to read it directly. It said, "If I generate value, I will be accepted." That was the phrase. If I generate value, I will be accepted. And that was the phrase that was pissing me off so much. If I generate value, I will be accepted. And and I think the reason that it's pissing me off so much, this phrase, to generate value, I think the thing that pisses me off is that this phrase, to generate value, it's manipulates one of the most basic drives that we humans have. We humans, we're social animals. And so I mean, if we're not accepted by the tribe, if we're not accepted by other humans, the price is death. I mean,
Yeah, certain death, yeah.
Certain death, expulsion and death. It's not like we can go off and, survive on our own or something like that. So we'll get eaten by a bear or something like that. So the penalty for being, thrown out of the tribe is death. And so, of course, we want to be accepted. And so if you dangle this phrase, if a bunch of us were walking around thinking, if I provide value, I will be accepted. If a bunch of us are walking around brainwashed into believing this phrase, then of course we're going to pursue this empty goal of providing value.
Yeah.
We're going to pursue it for the rest of our lives. And because it's empty, we're never going to reach it. We're never going to say, oh, well, I have provided value, so therefore my life is over. I've lived a full life. I can die now. That time is never going to come. We're always going to be trying to provide value. And so this phrase, to provide value, this is what I mean. I'll give you a couple examples of what I mean by that. When I was thinking about this morning, this phrase, to provide value, when I was thinking about it this morning, I was thinking about these. I was sitting at a cafe, and I was just looking through the window, at some people sitting outside, and they were just sitting around. They were drinking tea and smoking a cigarette, and they were just chatting. Just two random people having a conversation at a cafe, drinking some tea. And I thought, okay, well, person number one is not sitting there thinking, oh, person number two is providing me with value, and therefore I'm going to let person number two continue to exist and sit there and talk to me. And person number two did not wake up this morning thinking, oh, if I provide value to person number one, she's going to let me sit at the table and talk to her. So that's not what they're thinking. They're just thinking, well, we like hanging out with each other, and so of course we're going to hang out together. And then I thought of another example, and that is let's say a kid, like a 4-year-old girl who likes to, she's dancing on the living room floor, entertaining a room full of adults who are sitting around laughing at this kid. And the kid is not thinking, okay, if I get the dance steps just right, at step number 3, I have to put my right foot down. And, if I get the steps just right, the adults are finally going to accept me, and then everything will be fine. The kid is just thinking, I like to dance, and apparently my dancing makes these adults laugh, so I'm going to do it. And so the bar for providing value is so much lower than we think it is. And Alper, you mentioned, when I mentioned these examples to you earlier, you mentioned that you had some pushbacks. What are those pushbacks on these two examples that I just mentioned?
Well, to be fair, the pushbacks are not about disagreeing with your point of view, but it's just playing the devil's advocate. So in the case of two friends, for example, one of the things that crossed my mind was, well, actually, there is value. There seems to be some value in that gathering. So let's say I have something on my chest that I want to air out. It could be about the person. It could be about something else. And I just need an ear to talk to. I just need someone to confide in. So in that regard, I think we are talking about a tremendous amount of value that I may not be able to find someplace else. And when done in reciprocity, I think this is what keeps friendships going. Not only this reason, of course, but I think it's a big lubricant for social gears to function.
Yeah.
And in the case of the small girl dancing in front of her parents, maybe, I'm just hypothetically speaking now, maybe there is a part of the kid who thinks, okay, if I do this dancing thing, I see that people like it, and I think deep down her amygdala or someplace, she knows that the excitement and pleasure of people around her means a lot for her survival. So
Yeah.
there is some significant existential value maybe in the dancing moves that she's putting. But like I said, these are just minor pushbacks that are catering to the devil more than the argument itself.
They might be, in your words, minor pushbacks, but actually they're really good pushbacks. And let me define the term a little bit better, which so it might make my examples a little bit more clear. So I agree that there is a tremendous amount of value being provided in both examples, and for exactly those reasons. The friendship and the adults are laughing, and so they're going to feed me tonight. And therefore I get to survive for another 24 hours. So there's a tremendous amount of value being provided in both of those examples. The thing is, and I guess the reason that phrase "provide value" makes me so angry is that it causes us to look at the wrong thing, to think that the value is being provided in some way that it is actually not. And I'll explain more what I mean by that. In the cafe example, the value is on a very low base, or not low, but very basic human exchange level. It's like, I like talking to this person helps me sort out my life, and therefore I'm going to meet with this person for tea.
Yeah, I feel good about it.
Yeah, I feel good about it. And in the kid dancing example, the value that's being provided is also on a very basic human exchange level. It's like, I like dancing. Dancing seems to work. And from the adult's perspective, the exchange is, I like laughing. Let's let this kid dance some more. And then, the kid gets some love and some food that night, and the kid gets to survive another 24 hours. So there's definitely exchange, or there's definitely value being exchanged. But so it's not that this phrase, if I provide value, therefore I gain acceptance. I guess my beef is not with that phrase itself. It's what that phrase causes us to do. Because, if you have, like, down here on the basic human level, this is where the value is being provided, the friendship or the dancing. I like dancing. So it's a very, the value is being provided on a very basic human level. But in business life, like for example, on LinkedIn, or I don't know, some other business format, we think, like, let's use the LinkedIn example.
I was going to
LinkedIn,
ask you about that actually next.
yeah, okay. So let's use the LinkedIn as our example. Let's say that you write a post for LinkedIn, and your post gets 5 likes or something like that, and you want 9 million likes or something like that. And so the typical response is, well, the reason I only got 5 likes is because I am not providing value. And so it causes us to look in the wrong place, because we think, okay, I'm not providing value, so I need to look up, and somehow the value is going to be provided there. So it's causing us to always chase something that we had way back down here low. It's causing us to think that value is above us, and we end up on pursuing an unending chase after something that we never find, when actually the value was always there. It was just, we just didn't see it because it was so much lower. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense, and comes with a follow-up on my side.
Go for it.
For example, in that case, how would you define the relationship between the value to provide and the engagement that you get? Would you assume that the higher the engagement automatically means more value, or could there be other factors going into this equation?
Wait, I'm confused by the question. Can you say that again?
Yes, of course. When you give the LinkedIn example of creating value and receiving likes in return,
Yeah.
are you creating a direct correlation between the amount of value created and the number of engagements you receive? Do you see it? Are you seeing it that way?
Yeah. More engagement is not necessarily like it's not a one-to-one. More engagement means more value is being provided, but it's a good signal. If there's more engagement, it's a positive signal. More engagement means highly likely to be providing value. More engagement means more value was probably provided, therefore I'm headed in the right direction. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. If that is what you are thinking, you are assigning intrinsic, ironically, value to value itself, right? So why does it piss you off so much when there is a correlation between the higher value and the higher acceptance?
Because it causes us to waste time, basically. That's why it makes us so angry. It causes us to waste time and look in the wrong direction when we already have something that we are looking for.
Okay. And how do you tie it to the concept of providing value to the customer?
Yeah, ooh, that's a good question because, this is, after all, a presentation podcast. So we should probably tie this concept into presentation somehow. If you're giving a presentation, and this is how I would tie it into into presentations. We'll see if it works, or if you say, Matt, you're full of junk. We want to keep this
Clean. Yeah.
clean, so we'll use the word junk instead of what I'm really thinking. Matt, you're full of junk, and you should have thought about this a little further. Okay, so here's how I think that this ties into presentations. When we walk into a presentation, we want our audience to give us a lot of likes or pick us up on their shoulders and parade us through town. We want our audience to love us, kind of like person number 2 thinks,
what kind of presentations are you making?
Okay, well, let me make it a little less extreme. When we give a presentation, we want the audience to kind of receive us like the little girl dancing on the living room floor. We want the audience to at least like us and give us some food,
I
or
could live with that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
more like it.
or if we're person number 2, we want person number 1 to like us enough, or to here's that phrase again, to get enough value out of the conversation to want to have another one with us. So those are the kinds of, we want those reactions from our audience. And
Yes.
if we walk into the presentation and we want those reactions so badly that we lock ourselves into this idea that we need to provide more value, maybe we end up going in the wrong direction, when actually maybe what the audience really wants is just someone who understands the problem and maybe knows the first couple steps of how you go about solving it, but doesn't really know the whole way. Maybe they know 10% of the solution or 20% of the solution, but they don't know 100% of the solution. Maybe that's what the audience wants. And if we walk in there thinking what the audience wants is not only somebody who can describe the problem, but can give 100% of the way out of the problem, if that's what we walk into the presentation thinking, then maybe we're going to end up going in the wrong direction and talking something that we don't know and that our audience doesn't even like hearing, when really all the audience had was a much more basic need, which was, can this person describe the problem and at least give us the first couple steps that we should be taking, or maybe like a general idea about how to get out of this situation?
Mm-hmm.
So
So you're talking about a situation in which it takes pressure off the speaker, the pressure of providing every single solution or information or data out there,
yeah,
and lowering the bar maybe of expectations. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I'm saying, which is, yeah, it takes the pressure off. Instead of walking in there thinking, I've got to know everything about how to not only describe the problem, but solve it. And I've got to do everything perfectly. And I've got to hit 100%. Maybe the pressure's off. Maybe it's enough to just go in there and do a really good description and give the first couple steps out and, cover 30% of the path instead of 100% of the path. And maybe that's all the audience wants.
Okay, I can live with that.
Wow. Okay. So
Being paraded around town, I'm not so sure, but yeah, this
yeah.
sounds good.
Okay. So yeah, it probably is a little too much to be expected in any situation. Well, there are a few situations, but yours is probably not going to be one of them. It's probably a little too much to expect to be put up on everyone's shoulders and paraded around town like you just won the national basketball championships or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at least to have them laugh or say, "Hey, that's a good idea. Tell us more." That's a realistic expectation.
So, for the sake of closing, if we want our audience to like us and keep providing us with food, would you like to part with them an actionable item, which would also create some value, by the way?
Yeah. So see, we can't, we can't get away from that phrase.
No.
As much as it makes Matt angry, we can't get away from that phrase to create some value, to provide value. So yeah, the value that I would suggest is whatever pressure you feel before your presentation, whatever pressure you feel to be perfect, you're probably looking in the wrong direction. You probably crossed the bar, the bar that is, this person is worth listening to. That bar, you probably crossed that like a few seconds after they invited you into the conversation in the first place. So that bar or that boundary line or whatever you want to call it has probably been crossed or passed a long time ago. And you don't need to it's okay to take the pressure off yourself. You don't need to walk into the presentation thinking that I need to be more than I already am.
That's good advice. I like that. Which brings the topic of maybe comparison, but we'll leave it for another episode. But I think we should definitely put that on the table as well.
About comparison?
Yeah, because I have a
Yeah.
feeling that not if all anxiety or nervousness that we experience may be stemming from that. Like, am I creating
Ooh.
enough value? Enough
Yeah.
compared to what? Or
Yeah.
am I resonating enough? Again, enough compared to what? So I think in the world of presentations, we can put comparing ourselves onto the table and talk about it in a future episode.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I agree. That's worth at least an episode by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So at least we've addressed this subject for today. So we'll get around to that one in a future episode. So thank you everyone for joining us. And that's it for today. And we'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.